editor at Fansided's flagship MLB site, Call to the Pen. And who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were pointing to your Twitter handle here. Hey guys, what's up? You guys know me as CT, but the reality is my name is Luis. That's the first time I said that on this show. It feels kind of weird. We'll continue with CT for now. Follow me on Twitter at Hova Mojo.
Damn. You got personal there, CT.
Also, if you're listening to this in our audio version, you're just missing this dope background I put together here with all my baseball hats and my Red Sox. Let me get my thumb in the shot. I can't do this, man. Take it away, Manny.
I have some questions, man. I have some questions about those hats in your background. I see a St. Louis Cardinals hat back there. I see an A's cap. I see a White Sox cap.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story, man? I thought you were a Red Sox fan. Are you a fraud? I see a Twins cap.
The A's hat is my brother's, as a matter of fact. He bought it to match with a green and yellow jersey that we had for a softball team we played in together, by the way.
Ah, yes, I have that hat too.
The St. Louis hat is also my brother's, and the White Sox hat underneath. We got those hats at the same time, and at that time we were just getting random hats.
Okay.
We already had, a bunch of Red Sox hats and Yankees hats, so.
True story. Well, today we're going to start the show off by breaking down episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance. It's 24 hours pretty much after the fact. It happened 24 hours ago. I personally thought it was the best episode of the entire series so far. There's 4 episodes left, 2 more weeks at 2 episodes each. So we're going to break that all down for you guys. Then we're going to get into our sports headlines, everything that's happening in the world of sports, Major League Baseball, NFL, and the NBA. But let's start with the Last Dance. CT, what did you think of last night's episodes?
While I was watching last night's episode, the first thing I thought of was the last time we spoke about The Last Dance and how Joe Madden had received like an offer to take a vacation from Theo Epstein during the Cup season. How I was like, oh my God, this is the direction sports is heading, whatever. But then I saw that episode last night, and like it kind of makes sense why these athletes are like we develop like this certain like image about them, not even knowing who they are, because the way the media likes to twist and turn everything, it's like as long as they get the headline, it doesn't matter what the truth is, right? So it's like I kind of understand why Jordan. I don't know if that's what's going to end up being the result, but if Jordan retired after that season because of like he couldn't take the media anymore, then I kind of understand it now. I kind of understand why athletes don't want to put up with the bullshit and why they complain and stuff like that. I know they're getting paid millions, but I think like at the end, like mentally they must be going nuts.
I mean, you can't, if you're someone like Michael Jordan, especially at the time, who was the biggest star in the world pretty much. He can't step out into the streets without getting mauled by a bunch of fans. I don't know how I don't know, man. I understand that these guys make millions of dollars and all this stuff, but I don't begrudge them when they don't want to sign an autograph and all this stuff, because at some point you're gonna want your own time, man. And you saw what they showed yesterday, and this wasn't even really one thing that I highlighted so much, but you're right. What they showed yesterday was that he's getting to the court for a game. He's getting ready for the game, let's say an hour before the game. Then he's practicing for the game. Then he plays the game. Then after the game, he has to sign autographs. Then he goes, has a 10-minute break, drinks a beer, goes back out to do press. Then he goes outside and there's more fans, so he has to sign autographs. He can't walk in the street without being mauled by a group of people. And that has to suck, man. No matter how much money you make, you're basically in quarantine your whole life. We're living like celebrities, CT.
And the more, obviously, yeah, okay. The more that I watched that documentary, the more I realized like Jordan was just the perfect basketball player in the perfect time, in the perfect decade, to take basketball in the Olympics and be the best player on that team, and then to like emerge, and then NBA becomes like this global phenomenon and all that stuff. For MJ to be that player during that time, that to me is why, again, I'll say it, like it doesn't matter what people do after this. I think in our lifetime there just isn't going to be another Jordan. But then you got to give credit to guys like Kobe and LeBron that have inserted themselves into the conversation post Jordan. Like
Yeah.
the guys that came before Jordan were already there, so people were fighting for those guys to keep in the conversation. But for Kobe, Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry, for those guys to insert themselves in the conversation, like you got to give a lot of credit to those guys.
For real, man. And so a couple of things that stood out to me. The first thing was how Jordan continues to reiterate his support for Phil Jackson when they go back to 1998, because one of the criticisms that I had last week was the time jumps were a little confusing. I thought that the last two episodes were a lot clearer. Like I could follow the story a lot better. My wife could follow the story a lot better. And one of the things that I guess I should have pointed out last week that I had a criticism about was that we lost the focus. The show at some point lost its focus in terms of that the point of the show is the 1998 season. But that's not the main story in a lot of ways, because most of the time you're going back in time and you're following the trajectory of his career in chronological order and then jumping to 1998 to see what happened then. It's almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like it's starting at the end and then you're going back in time to see what happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
Besides the point. But by 1998, the relationship between Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson had deteriorated. Krause announced Phil Jackson is gone by the end of the season, no matter what happens. And Jordan continues to toe the line for his coach. If Phil Jackson isn't gonna be here, then I'm not playing anymore. And I get that, and I appreciate that 100%. I don't think that today's athlete would necessarily do something like that. But I wanted to ask you, would you toe the line like that for your coach? Would you say, if my coach isn't here, I'm not playing anymore? Or could he have handled it another way? Like show his support for Phil Jackson, but at the same time, not be so bold as to say, like, I'd rather play somewhere else or retire altogether.
I think that by handling it a different way, I think it would have been him and Phil finding a different team to sign with. Mm-hmm. Would have been a good way if the Bulls didn't want him and he wanted to stick by his coach, but still make it work, still not retire and all that stuff. But you're right about what you said, that like the show in the last couple of episodes had lost its way of like focusing on the 98 season, and the time jumps were like all over the place and stuff. I still felt that a little bit about the last two episodes. I feel like at this point we've already forgotten the impact of Scottie Pippen holding out at the beginning of the season of the last season. We have already forgotten about Dennis Rodman's like Vegas hiatus or whatever. So it's like maybe this show wasn't meant to be like a every week thing. It was meant to be like a Netflix series. And was it meant to be a Netflix series?
No, I think it was always going to be an ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus thing, but I think it was going to be aired later in the year.
I think if we ever watch the show again, like on Netflix, where we get to binge watch it or some platform like that, I think it'll be a lot better, because it's like we're already forgetting about the impact of all this stuff.
Yeah, you're right. That week of no story makes it a little bit, doesn't flow as well.
And it's funny how like you mentioned like forgetting that it's about the 98 season and Jerry Krause, whatever, and then in all those two episodes, all you see is they repeat the championship, or they three-peat the first time, and you just hear Jerry Krause get like 30 seconds of him explaining like how he thinks it's a great team, but he loves the organization and this is the best, blah blah blah. So it kind of made me forget about that as well too. I think that the question was, could he have handled that better? Yes, but I don't think it would have ended with him playing with the Bulls. I don't think there's any way that it would have ended like that.
I almost think it falls in line with another main topic of the last two episodes, Jordan's gambling. I think that when he was doing that, he was trying to call Jerry Krause's bluff. That's my take. I think he was making a bet. He was gambling that Krause would see that Jordan was throwing the line for his coach. So eventually Krause would back down, but he never did. And I guess we'll see in the next coming episodes how that pays off in the end, which we all know that this would end up being Jordan's final season before returning like 2 or 3 years later with the Washington Wizards, I guess they were at the time. But I think it has a lot to do with his gambling issues, and I guess that's a good transition for the next thing. Was that he kept saying how he doesn't have a gambling problem, that he's not addicted to gambling, that he has a competition problem, that he has a competitive problem. And I disagree with that. When I watched the last two episodes, I always knew that he was a serial gambler. I think I texted you guys and said that he reminds me of Jeter because he's really good about, how to put his public persona out there and how he handled the media and how he always seemed to make the right choices all the time. But Jeter, like Jordan, has somewhat of a gambling problem. Like he would hold nightly poker games, high stakes poker games in his apartment in New York City and all this stuff. Like apparently his main table is like a big poker table or whatever. But this isn't a Jeter Jordan comparison. I think Jordan does have a gambling problem, and I think it's shown with how everything is a gamble for him. Like even with his bodyguards, he's playing craps and shit. And on the planes, he's playing high stakes blackjack games. While the guys, I think it was B.J. Armstrong and James Paxton, were sitting in the front of the plane playing like $1 games of blackjack or whatever. And he still wanted to even participate in those games. I think it is a competitive problem. I think he wants to win. He wants to be the best all the time. But in gambling, there's no skill. There's some skill involved. But in craps, there's no skills involved in craps. Like that's a game of luck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's just giving money away. He's, you know what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
think. Yeah, I know you never won. It's ridiculous. But you know what? I know what you're saying. Like he has a problem of gambling. But when I hear gambling problem, I agree with what he said. Where he said if I really had a gambling problem, I'd be pawning my watch to gamble, or I'd be putting my house up for as collateral or something like that. When
I think
Jordan
he's
never
so
got
rich that
no,
it
but
won't get to that.
I don't think. See, I think he's super rich with or without the investments and all that stuff. He's super rich. But how many people come out of retirement and go bankrupt because they can't afford to pay for things? So you're looking at Jordan, who not only has he amassed the most money as a basketball player, but he's been able to keep the mansion. He's been able to keep the cars, keep the legacy, keep his rings. We've never seen a Jordan ring in the market per se. I think if he had a real gambling problem, I think we would have heard Jordan had to sell his Ferrari to pay a guy back, whatever. I know in the show they show an example of him having to sign like a $50,000 check or whatever. I think in that sense, yeah, he has a lot of money, whatever. It's like his money and shit. But I wouldn't say it's such a big issue. I think the media made it a bigger issue than it really was. And as far as him trying to call Jerry Krause's bluff in the '98 season, I think that might be part of it. But I also think that I believe him when he says that there's nothing for him to prove anymore, like in basketball, and for him to go through the constant Groundhog Day scenario where he's showing up, interviewed,
same question,
plays a great game, interviewed. Are you retiring? How do you feel about the championship? What's Scottie Pippen doing? Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman throwing logs in the fire to just like fan the flames or whatever. And I think like he might have just used that Phil Jackson or nothing excuse to convince himself that he wanted to retire. I think you're thinking that he might have been trying to call his bluff, like Jerry's bluff, but I also think that he was kind of relieved that none of that played out where he had to come back to Chicago. I kind of, but at the same time, he would have played for another team. I mean, it's rare that a guy plays for one team their whole career. It's too rare.
At the same time, in an earlier episode, and this kind of, to your point, had this been a Netflix series or released all at the same time on ESPN Plus or something like that, which I wonder what the numbers would have been had they done that. Maybe it would have been better. But in an earlier episode, he had said when he told the line for Phil Jackson that the team deserves a chance to defend their title, that Phil Jackson should be brought back so they could defend their title one more time. And if they lose that they don't win the championship in the 98-99 season, then okay, then dismantle the team. And it just I don't know. To me, it seemed like he wanted to defend his title. Although yesterday they kind of hinted at the fact that he was tired after that 92-93 season. He said that, if he could walk away from the game, he would. And as we know, that's when after the third championship, That's when he retired and moved to baseball. But I don't know, man. I think he really wanted to defend his title after that 98 season, that 97, 98 season.
I think there's something to that. As a competitor, he wants to defend his title, but having beaten the same team twice back to back, maybe that being the biggest threat in the NBA at the time, for him to three-peat again, I mean, I think even Jordan can call that, like, if it ended today, what do I have to complain about? I have nothing else to prove. I think the only thing that would have made Jordan not retire is seeing into the future and seeing LeBron getting to the finals 9 times. For him to do that at least one more time, get a fourth final in a row, just to add it to his side of the argument, maybe he would have done it. But I don't think even Jordan thought that there would be a LeBron James, even though he's responsible for there being a LeBron James, because they started drafting out of high school. They started looking for these monsters.
Even Kobe said it. Like there'd be no Kobe if it wasn't for Michael. Like he wouldn't have turned out to be the great player that he was if it wasn't for Michael Jordan.
And I wanted to say I don't know if you had another question in terms of
No.
I
do have more points to bring up, but go ahead.
I just wanted to say the two best scenes, clearly the guy shrugging him off in the coin game, but also Jordan playing his last game at the Garden like as a Bull, and then wearing the Jordan 1s, and his feet were bleeding. I thought that was just hilarious for some reason, but it had nothing to do with the story. Like,
no, it's what you said. It's they go back in time and they just like, here you go, Jordan. Like, here's some highlights of yourself. Like,
let's stroke your ego a little more.
Which I'm fine with, because I was really young. In '98, I was 14, and what was that series with the Knicks? I was like 8 years old, and I remember it. Yeah, because we had cousins like Jong, like I'm, he calls himself Giambi. He plays softball with you guys. He was a diehard Knicks fan, and there were times he'd come to my house, and I remember he used to tape the Knicks games because he was such a diehard Knicks fan, and I remember watching those games, and I remember watching it with him specifically in my house, and I remember watching in another cousin's house later on when Jordan came back from retirement, and I remember being heartbroken, like, fuck, man, the Knicks, like, they were such a powerhouse team, and he just kept tearing us down. It hurt watching that yesterday. But before I jump into the next thing, I was just looking at Phil Jackson's coaching record. Listen to this fucking shit. 1991, the Bulls beat the Pistons, championship. The next season, championship again. The next season, championship again, three-peat. Jordan retires, 2 seasons, no championship, right? Jordan came back 94, 95, I believe, like midway through or something. They didn't win that year. 95, 96, championship. 97, 98, championship. 96, 97, championship. 97, 98, championship. Second three-peat. Phil Jackson doesn't coach for a year. Comes back with the Lakers. Guess what happens?
Kobe, Shaq.
Another three-peat. 99, 2000. 2000, 2001. 2001, 2002. Then he doesn't win for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, and then he goes back-to-back championships again. But he went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 year consecutive championship run. Will that ever be done again in the NBA? That's fucking nuts.
No, and it's just crazy just reading that the guy didn't have a guaranteed job at the end of that second repeat.
Insane. Doesn't make any sense.
I looking back at like The Last Dance is more of just like paying homage to the 90s NBA, because I go on Bleacher Report today and they just have a bunch of Charles Barkley highlights. It's like Charles Barkley, people are going to start recognizing that the 90s was like it was an amazing time for basketball.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it was an amazing time for football and baseball.
Yeah.
The MLB was the steroid era. Like the 90s decade was just crazy. It came right before like the internet boom. So I think it's pretty cool. Like it's about Jordan, the Bulls, but it's really like more about the 90s NBA and like how it became what it is today. Like when people say basketball's boring, not like it used to be, I think they're always talking about the 90s. Like
the NBA in the 90s, nothing could top it. I mean, I think I've said on the show before, this is primarily a baseball show because we're diehard baseball fans. But if it wasn't because the Knicks completely shit the bed post 2000, I think I'd still be a NBA first person, but because the NBA was always number one as a kid. Um, and then luckily the Yankees took over, and I started to shift my interest more toward baseball. But the NBA in the '90s, there's nothing like it, man. You had everybody. There was a superstar in every team. Um, guys I forgot about guys like Dan Marley, and I forgot that Danny Ainge played for the Suns. Like, so many memories. That Utah Jazz team was a beast. John Stockton, Karl Malone, um, Alonzo Mourning with the Miami Heat, Tim Hardaway. Fucking, there was a superstar in every corner. And on Saturdays, Ahmad Rashad would host a NBA highlight show in the morning, and that was like the must watch TV every Saturday. The NBA ruled, and they're getting back to that because the NBA went through a stretch there in the early 2000s where it kind of lost its way, and I think it's coming back to that, where there's a lot of superstars and it's more focused on the talent as opposed to the team stuff. But I lost my train of thought a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you like the
moving on.
90s, man. I love the 90s. You love the 90s.
Fucking 90s are great. Aside from the strike, the baseball strike kind of sucked a little bit, but it's all right. We got the steroid era after that. Thank you, steroids. All right. The other thing was when Michael Jordan said that Isaiah Thomas wasn't he's not the reason Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the Dream Team. Bullshit. He totally was the reason he wasn't on the Dream Team. He may not have said outwardly, I don't want Isaiah Thomas on this team, but he did say on the show, he asked Chuck Daly who was going to be on the team.
Yeah, who was on the plane.
And when he didn't hear somebody's name, he decided I'll be on the team. So
yeah. But I think that looking back at Isaiah Thomas's career, like, he had beef with other people, and I wouldn't say that they made it so. I mean, Jordan said he wouldn't play even though he didn't come out and say the name Isaiah Thomas, but I think it was just better for the team that Isaiah Thomas wasn't there. And if it came down to that, then I got to put the blame on Isaiah Thomas, because that's not professional to act like. There's a difference between being competitive and talking smack than being like bad mouthing towards someone or something. Like what the little thing that happened with Kevin Garnett and Carmelo Anthony years back. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Kevin Garnett called Lala Anthony a Cheerio or something
because he would always talk shit in the court.
Yeah,
everybody had beef with Kevin Garnett. Yeah.
He would talk shit, but to call someone's wife a Cheerio.
Yeah. But he would say, but Kevin Garnett, so I'm not making excuses for Kevin Garnett. I don't think I would take shit like that either, whether it's in the heat of the moment or whatever. But Garnett, people hated Garnett because he would go personal in the court. And that was his way to get in your mind to get the advantage over you. But some things are better left unsaid. Like yesterday, this is the next thing I wanted to talk about, sticking with the Dream Team, is that scrimmage game, that footage of that scrimmage game. I almost wish that they had aired that shit at the time, because that's amazing that they took it so seriously. All the shit that Magic Johnson was talking to Michael Jordan, then Michael Jordan coming back and just making him eat his words.
Yeah.
Like, but the trash talk wasn't personal. Going back to the Garnett thing, it was more like, we ain't in Chicago. We're not in the Chicago stadium now. Whatever. Michael Jordan made him eat his words and took him to town.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how the game has changed from then to now, because I don't think guys would be taking a scrimmage that seriously today.
I think, yeah. Again, I think it was just that was like the NBA players' first time getting into the Olympics. And I keep saying it, like, I'll keep saying it now after watching this, that I think Jordan was just the right place, right time, right decade. You can't you can't repeat that career.
Think about in today's athlete, and I don't want to sound like that old man, or today's kids are soft. That's none of that shit. I can't imagine that today's athlete or an organization today would allow a player to play in a scrimmage, because that's essentially what the Olympics is. It matters, but it's not really, I guess, if you really think about it.
That scrimmage had no part in being played so serious.
Yeah. So that's one thing. The second thing is allowing a player to put on sneakers that he admittedly says are super uncomfortable. His feet are all cut. There's no fucking way that shit would happen today. I don't think an organization would say, no, we're paying you way too much money. You can't wear those sneakers. We're paying you way too much money. You can't play in the WBC or you can't play in the Olympics. Like that's today versus back in the day. The players had more of a say, and they would go out of their way to go above and beyond. You know what I mean? And I don't think they do that so much anymore.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that today's players are soft or not as good as those players. I think it just goes to show how much money is invested in the games now that people don't want to take that risk anymore.
There's a good commercial where Jordan starts off saying like maybe it's my fault. You ever seen that commercial?
No.
It's the best Jordan commercial. That one and the one where he's playing against himself, his Bulls version versus like rookie version or something.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Well, in this commercial, he's going through all his accolades, like or something, and he's asking like, is it his fault to make you think basketball was easy, blah blah. And in the end, he's like, he ruined the NBA or he ruined basketball. And I think he did ruin the NBA because every superstar walking today is just another Jordan, except Jordan, practiced against his team's wishes to come back like his second season with a broken foot. Like he covered the Reebok sign with the
flag.
National flag.
That was amazing.
He doesn't endorse the black senator. Like he's just different, but everybody's like a carbon copy of his outside of the court stuff. I got lost my train of thought, man.
I hope that I know that I have a different appreciation of Jordan, even though I remember him playing. And like I've continued tweeting, I hate Michael Jordan, but for all the right reasons. Like the greatest of all time for sure. After watching this, I'm ready to say, all right, LeBron isn't the greatest of all time.
It's big.
Yeah, mark it down, ladies and gentlemen. I might change my mind next week, but yeah, man. Just I hope that athletes are watching this and they step it up a little bit more and maybe say, yeah, I make $35 million, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play 100% every single day. I'm not going to take rest days. I want to bust my ass. You know what I mean? And I know I keep doing this with the Jeter comparisons. I have to do it, man. I'm sorry. But Jeter played like that too. Like he threw himself into the fucking stands head first for a foul ball in a regular season game against the Boston Red Sox. One time, that's true, but he did stupid shit like that. I came back with fucking black eyes and shit. That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Just the fans like to see that, and if you want to win a fan over, bust your ass, and you'll have a fan in us forever. And I think that's what Jordan showed us.
That's true.
Because I mean, physically, he wasn't built like the best player. I think if we look at the stat sheets, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. He probably wasn't the top rebounder on his team or the top steals getter or the top assist man or whatever. But he did everything super well because he busted his ass. And that made him the best player in the NBA, the greatest player of all time. You know what I'm saying? So
I think
you can will yourself to that. You know what I mean?
I think you're right about the maybe he wasn't the best rebounder and stuff like that. But you're so right that he busted his ass on everything. He was elite on both sides of the ball, which is rare these days. LeBron is, Kawhi Leonard is, but majority of the league is you're either offense specialist, 3-point specialist, whatever. But that argument about him not having the most rebounds and he didn't have the most assists, I think that goes back to like the NBA keeps progressing and emerging in different, like evolving in different ways. And in Jordan's time as a shooting guard, your job was to shoot. Right. It wasn't until like, I guess Magic Johnson's he was like a juggernaut. Like he was the exception. Yeah. But then you got guys like LeBron James came along and they can do everything, and they did it so well that they continue to bring the ball up and do the rest. So it's that argument. I always go back and forth because on the one hand, I'm like, in Jordan's time, he wouldn't be busting his ass to get rebounds. They have centers for that. But then again, Steph Curry came along, and then 3-pointers all of a sudden became this must do thing on the court. So it's like back then the NBA didn't shoot threes, but if Steph Curry played back then, I think he would have shot threes. He shoots them at like 50%. So it's like
he would have been Steve Kerr. That was Steve Kerr's job with the Bulls, was shoot that three, sink that three.
Yeah.
Ray Allen too. So that was The Last Dance, man. Fucking love that. Love the show, man.
Yeah, I got one last thought about The Last Dance. I don't want to I know this is long enough. It's taking a
This is
long
long
time
as
already.
fuck.
Sorry, man.
It's not your fault. It's my fault.
I just want to go back to. I felt bad for Jordan in the one scene where he's filming that commercial and he had to do like 5 takes. He just looks so miserable. And I also feel bad for the way that everybody turned on him for not endorsing the black senator running in North Carolina. And I think it's an issue that we still face today. Like, if you're black, you have to support black, which I don't agree with. And it's funny how they didn't mention any of the policies. They didn't mention what the other guy was. They mentioned the other guy was a racist, but you didn't hear anything about their policies or their background or history or anything. All you heard was that Jordan said Republicans buy Reeboks too. And sometimes I feel like politics gets too much in the way of things where you could like alienate people.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Jordan stayed out of it. I think that's why guys like Jeter stay out of it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So
And the thing is, Jordan revealed yesterday that though he stayed out of it, he donated to the guy's campaign. So he supported him. He supported the black candidates. I forgot what his name is. That's why I'm calling him the black candidate.
hey, man.
But what was it? He had like a villain's name. It was like Harvey Gantt or some shit. Like
yeah, like a Batman.
Yeah.
I think it was Harvey Gantt. Yeah.
Harvey Gantt. I think that's what it was. But he supported him with money, with campaign finances. Politicians shouldn't have to rely on the endorsement of a popular athlete or big donors. He or she should rely on good policies that people believe in and getting yourself out there and doing the work. I don't blame Jordan for that. I get it. It was probably a high stakes election. I don't know what either candidate's record is. I'm pretty sure it probably would have been the right thing to vote for the black guy, Harvey Gantt. Keep saying the black guy. Sorry. But that's not Jordan's job. Jordan's a basketball player. You know what I mean? Exactly. He could have his personal opinions, but they're his personal opinions. His opinions should not influence you. You know what I'm saying?
Jordan would have gotten eaten alive by social media.
Oh my God! Thank God social media wasn't around back then. Man.
For real, man. I'm telling you, perfect time, perfect athlete.
They would have canceled his ass.
For sure.
Word. Anything else? Last Dance related?
Nah.
I don't even have a timer in front of me. I'm pretty sure we did Last Dance talk for about 30 minutes ish. It's okay. You know what we should do now, CT?
Tell me, man.
Let's get into the headlines.
Oh, you want some headlines?
Give me some headlines.
All right. Blake Snell wins the Players League on MLB The Show. I think he won the first tournament that they did this year through MLB Players. This guy might be too much of a gamer. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and so I watched the interview. I feel like I'm shouting. If I'm shouting, CT, you let me know, okay?
Sound good to me, man.
I watched this post-game interview. I didn't watch the game, but I watched it on MLB.com, and I think maybe he does kind of just sit in his room and play video games all day, because he was saying how he really enjoyed the tournament, but that he hopes that next time that these guys continue playing so that the competition could be higher. He was kind of like praising Lucas Giolito, who he played against, but in like an offhanded way. Like he was like, when he keeps playing, he'll be more fun to like. I was like, wow, this guy, maybe there's like nothing against autistic people. Maybe he's a little on the spectrum or something. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I gotta look up his record on the show. You're allowed to look at like all the rankings and stuff like that. I gotta find out his gamer tag and see that record, because I would like to think that I could be the guy who I believe is spending his free time training for baseball. Like,
no, I think he's on that game, and his winning will benefit the Boys and Girls Club of the Suncoast. They're gonna receive a $30,000 donation.
In some other baseball news, the rumor about spring training starting June 10th and that July 1st will be opening day is false.
Ooh.
There is no start date, although they're targeting a late June start. And when I think start, I think they mean start of spring training again.
But
any thoughts on that?
Well, that sucks. But at the same time, I did hear that they do plan on starting games by July, hopefully. and that they want to get in at least 80 games in home park. So that's super positive news, man.
Yeah, man. In other news, ex-Yankees first baseman Jason Giambi. He also played for other teams, by the way, like the Oakland A's,
Colorado Rockies, Cleveland Indians.
not just the Yankees, guys. It's like the other day. I don't know his name, but he was in the movie that we did an episode on. Memento. He was in Memento. That actor who was the cop in Memento.
Yeah.
Got hit by a car, and they go Soprano star. He did a bunch of other things, and he was on The Sopranos for like a season or two, wasn't he?
I think he was in it for. He was Oh my God, what was his name on The Sopranos? But he's the one that beat the stripper that he had. He beat her, he choked her to death.
Yeah, and then Tony Soprano beat his ass to death as well. Yeah, so I feel like he's not known for The Sopranos. Is that just me, or
what do I know him from? The Matrix, Baby's Day Out,
Bad Boys.
Oh yeah,
Baby's Day Out. Oh my God, Baby's Day Out. I haven't thought of that movie in so long. Wow. I like that movie.
Bad Boys. Yeah, you're right. He was in Bad Boys.
Bad Boys, Memento.
I think it's the internet rules the day. At the end of the day, that's the thing, because with Jason Giambi, if you want that search to rank high, you want to attach him to the Yankees because they're the most searched MLB team on the internet. Whereas if you say Oakland Athletics star Jason Giambi, it's not going to rank as high. Less clicks, less money. Makes sense,
because I would have just been fine with just Jason Giambi since I.
But who's going to search for Jason Giambi?
You're right, man. You're right.
You're right again. It's because of this, CT.
Ex-Yankees first baseman Jason Giambi says Astro scandal is, quote, no different than PEDs. He goes on to say, I sleep great at night. I don't have to worry about it. The biggest thing that came out of it, talking about the steroid use, the biggest thing that came out of it is that I created a whole new set of fans who first gave me a second chance. But also, I don't know how many parents I run into that say, hey, thank you so much for coming forward. I can tell my children if they make a mistake to tell the truth. I think the biggest thing that came out of that, and I think that's what happened to me, be embraced for the second time around. It was because of that situation. There were some typos in there, man. I can't read. The light is in my face.
I agree with him. I think the rest of it is bullshit. I really highly doubt that somebody's coming up to him and say, hey, thank you for
I think there is.
I don't know. But anyway.
I think there is, man.
I agree with him. If in some ways I think what the Astros did is worse than PEDs.
No, I definitely think the Astros scandal is worse. But I think what he means is that the impact like that it had in the game at the time, like finding out that baseball players were taking steroids and that we were being lied to. I think like the whole aftermath is similar. It's on the same level. It's on the same plane. But yeah, I do think the scandal's worse.
Word. Anything else?
Oh, we're doing. That's all I got.
Oh, I got some more baseball highlights for you guys.
All right, man.
You want baseball, CT?
Yes.
You're gonna get some baseball. You're gonna get some baseball. KBO baseball, Korean baseball, ladies and gentlemen. ESPN has come to an agreement with the KBO to air all KBO games starting tonight. If you're listening to this, as we're streaming, KBO games will start airing tonight. 1 a.m. is going to be opening day for the KBO because they're in Korea, so time difference. So check that out. If you're listening to this tomorrow, it was last night, so you missed out. That's why you should watch the stream.
Real.
Another baseball story. It's not really a story, but I saw this on Bleacher Report, and I wanted to ask you, CT. Let's play a little game called Start, Bench, Cut. Between Cody Bellinger, Mike Trout, and Christian Yelich, who would you start? Who would you bench? Who would you cut?
I am starting Mike Trout.
I agree with you. I mean, how could you not start Mike Trout, right?
Yeah, seriously. I would bench Christian Yelich. And I would cut Cody Bellinger. Do you want to know why, Manny?
Let me hear this.
Cody Bellinger,
sir,
as we all know, won the MVP last year, but For those of us that actually watched the season, that were part of a very glorious fantasy league and had to watch the entire season, we all knew that Cody Bellinger kind of fell off in the second half. He wasn't as electric as in the first half of the season. Christian Yelich, 44 home runs to Cody Bellinger's 47 for the year, but he played in 26 less games. Christian Yelich was on pace to hit 60 home runs last year. And I think that he's been, just because Cody Bellinger had a down sophomore year, I think that's just enough for me to bench Christian Yelich and cut Cody Bellinger.
I agree with you. And although I think Cody Bellinger's the real deal, I have more of a sample size for Christian Yelich. So yeah, and I think that even if his power numbers go down at some point, his bread and butter is that he gets on base and he hits for average. So he's gonna manage to get to be on those base paths and score runs. In, like you said, in 26 fewer games, he only scored 20 less runs than Cody Bellinger. So
yeah,
this guy is a runs machine. Runs equals wins, as I always say, CT. So I agree with you. Let's move on to NFL highlights. Do you have any NFL highlights?
I know Peyton Manning is looking into running a team.
That would be cool.
Honestly, I mean, I'm not surprised. The guy's like a walking playbook.
Guy does everything good, too. Have you seen his show on ESPN? I forget what it's called, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's one of the few athletes who I feel like his commercials are really soothing to watch. I feel like he's not forcing it. He's like George Foreman with the grills, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Legendary coach Don Shula died at his home at the age of 90 this past weekend. He is the winningest coach in the NFL. He coached the only perfect season in NFL history. The other team that came close was the Patriots, but my Giants stopped that shit in his tracks. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion and four-time Coach of the Year. R.I.P. Don Shula.
R.I.P.
And also, Carson Wentz speaks for the first time since losing to the Seahawks in the playoffs. According to Mike Garofalo of NFL Network, he says, "I can confirm that I had a concussion and I was dealing with symptoms. It was scary stuff. You only get one of these brains and you have to protect it." End quote. Carson Wentz, man, something tells me that he's not going to be, I think he's going to be an Andrew Luck type of guy. Like, tons of promise, but I just don't think it's going to work out.
Could you imagine if they've been talking about him not wanting to continue in football and that's why they took that quarterback in the second round? I mean, that'd be nuts. But then again,
I'm sure he wants to keep playing. The guy just keeps getting injured. And I don't know if it's, at this point, I don't know if it's safe for him to keep playing, man.
Yeah, after seeing Andrew Luck retire early, like, I don't blame these guys for not wanting to go through that time and time again. And then also your future's at risk because you play football.
Speaking of, this just popped up to my head with Andrew Luck. Fucking Bill Belichick should be on the horn with Andrew Luck and trying to get him out of retirement.
Oh my God, that'd be.
He'd be a beast in New England.
He'd probably keep him protected too.
Yeah. Bill.
Yeah.
You heard it from me. Give me some cash if that happens. Last thing, the E60 for Alex Smith aired this past weekend, and I just have a question. Why the fuck would anybody want to play football after watching that shit?
I had it on the TV, and I was like, Alex Smith. Like, I don't care about Alex Smith. Click.
Have you seen the pictures?
No.
It's fucking horrifying. Once you see this leg, man.
I'm gonna type in Alex Smith into Google as you finish up that thought.
But he essentially almost lost his life after this leg injury. First off, watch the injury, and that alone is enough to make you not want to play football ever again. His leg was literally moving around like a piece of rubber, and then he got all these infections. I think it went septic. He was about to, like, he was on the verge of death, and now his leg looks like, I can't even describe it, man. Just check it out. E60. It's on ESPN Plus if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber. If not, Google the images. You'll see them. It's disturbing. See that?
Wait. This is what was left of. Is this like his leg spliced open?
That's not no, I want you to see, like, after all the nails are in it and all that stuff. So he has screws all over his leg. He removes the wrapping from it. In the first 10 minutes of the episode, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, you see this. Actually, in the first like 3 minutes of the episode.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about.
It's fucking crazy,
Oh.
man. It's insane. It's
Just got the
nuts.
chills.
And this is from playing football. And now I understand that he's, again, millions of dollars. He was a postseason quarterback. A lot of people called him a game manager, but I don't give a fuck. The guy was in the postseason every goddamn season, it seemed like. I don't. If I had a boy, man, he's not playing football. Fuck that. Hell no.
It's crazy, man.
Crazy.
I mean, it is.
Right.
It's just the most entertaining sport we got, man.
Oh
I'm sorry.
my god. And
Wow.
did I mention that Chiefs running back Damian Williams was robbed at an Airbnb home in Los Angeles? Per
You did not
TMZ?
mention. You did not mention that prior. So, good
So
job.
you have that now.
He plays for
And
the Chiefs.
Those are my NFL highlights. Yeah. Super Bowl champion, man.
Sounds like an inside job.
Word. Maybe it was Patrick Mahomes.
Chiefs and Chiefs. Chiefs news. 2 Chiefs headlines on one day. I don't know, man.
Crazy.
I don't like that. Oh God, this knee. I can't stop looking at tweets.
Oh man, so that's pretty much it, guys. We do this show every single Monday. You're gonna get a full episode from us. Otherwise, you can catch us Tuesday through Friday on the Quick Hits, where we give you sports headlines in 10 minutes. Hopefully, sometimes we go over, and we usually play a game or do something crazy afterwards. But that's pretty much it. Follow me at Manigo3. Follow the show at WT the Show on Twitter and Instagram. Our website is currently being updated, but if you want to check out some older content just go to WTTSpod.com. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Anything you liked about the show. Who would you start, bench, and cut? What did you think about the Last Dance episode? Would you play football after seeing the Alex Smith injury? Leave us
Have
a
you
comment.
ever been through such an injury and
And need a
wanna send
lawyer?
us-
Call 1-800.
and want to send us some pictures, man? Just
Send them,
we
and
got
we'll put that shit
we
up.
got the stomach for this.
Word. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Peace.